While we're waiting for it to start, hello everyone. Hello, hello. I'm so glad to be back. I haven't done a live in like 9 months. Oh, Dr. Okun's already ready to join. Let me see if I can get in. Go. See if it works. Hold 1 second. Accept. There you are. Okay, let me
Hi,
see if I can get Dr. Dorsey on too. It'll be a miracle, but we're gonna try.
he may be a few minutes late, so
Oh yeah, that's right. He might be late. Hold on, let me see if he's here. Hi, Dr. Okun. Right. Let's see. Hi, everybody. While we're waiting, we are here today to talk about, is this backwards for everyone? I can't tell. It might be backwards for you, but we're here to talk about, oh, there's Dr. Dorsey. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if I can add him to the party. Let's see if that works. I've never done two at once before, but the Instagram gods assured me that it was possible.
the Instagram god.
Let's see if they're right. Dr. Dorsey, do you see your invite? Let's see. Okay, while we're waiting for that magic to work, the new book is called The Parkinson's Plan. It comes out when, Dr. Ogun? The 19th?
19th on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh, so soon. It's so exciting. I just finished reading it. Ray Dorsey is unable to join. All right, we're going to keep trying because we know this is going to work. I just finished reading it. I'm not going to lie. It is more information than we could possibly ever tackle in one in one Instagram live, but we're going to try and do a bunch of it today if we can get Dr. Dorsey on. And 1 second, everybody. I'm just going to leave it up there for 1 second and see if it works. Dr. Dorsey, if you can hear us, let us know.
You can hear
Are you out there? Wait, Dr. Okun, tell us how you met Dr. Dorsey. How long have you known him?
Oh my God. So Dr. Dorsey, Ray Dorsey, he's actually my little brother. And
You look alike. It's your height. It
yeah,
definitely.
it's really like most people don't realize that he's my little brother, and I'm 5'6" and he's like 6'6". So
He
there's
really, he
my
really is so tall. And the first time I met him, I thought, oh, everyone talks about how tall he is, but then you actually see him and you're like, oh my Lord, he really is so tall.
Yeah, so we've been like instant friends, like how, like you feel like you meet somebody and you've known them your whole life. So Ray and I have been like instant friends for like 20 years, and we've always seen eye to eye, and then we also give each other a hard time on a lot of stuff, including things like all the stuff that's in the books, personal stuff, professional stuff. It's actually what makes our collaboration such a fun one is that we're willing to speak the truth, and truth to power, and help each other to get better. So we're absolutely totally critical of each other at all times. Even today we had an exchange this morning, so we're always fighting.
Oh, well, you're going to have an exchange with him after this because I can't
Yeah.
get him to join. But do you text about anything other than Parkinson's? Like,
Yes.
did you both watch Love Island this summer
So
and text each other about it?
we did not watch Love Island, although I will say that when I was every summer I teach high school students in Georgetown, close to your neck of the woods, and every time I walk through the student center there, the students are all watching Love Island, and not really
And
sure.
you're worried for our collective brains on a
Right,
whole other
there's
level when you see that
a
happen.
kids world, like that are going to lead us out of the jungle and all that stuff, and so I'm not sure, but Love Island seems very powerful. No, I mean most of what Ray and I text about. So he's big into basketball and professional basketball, and he has a family of tall sons, like multiple tall sons, so they have like a whole basketball team. uh, so they're always like going off on all of that. And then I'm a big baseball guy, so we intersect on college basketball a little bit. And then of course he got to come here when there was a Gator game, and then the Gators went on to win the tournament. So we talk about that. We talk about philosophy. He's got one son that's in Oxford that's like a super deep thinker, and then we're always talking about pollution and all the stuff in our environment. And it's I'm not sure how we get down. Now I watch a lot of Netflix series, and I was turned on to this by my wife. It's now an addiction, and so we watch all sorts of stuff like Slow Horses and some of those great things that are now on miniseries. But yeah, we're big bingers, my wife and I.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep trying with Dr. Dorsey. It keeps saying that he has declined. Maybe he doesn't, something's going on, but we will keep trying. In the meantime, as I said, the book is The Parkinson's Plan. If you don't have it yet, it will be available on Tuesday. It comes out the 19th. It is a comprehensive and fascinating look at all things to do with Parkinson's, both from the history, from different potential causes to patients at the center of the paradigm, to things you can do to avoid getting it, to the plan to end it, plus personal stories all scattered throughout, and what else? Myths debunked and skeptics brought to light. So the main part of the beginning of the book is that one of Dr. Dorsey's main focuses, and I think yours too, Dr. Okun, is on the environmental toxin piece of it and how the environment plays a role in those of us who have Parkinson's disease. What we know, and what I've talked to him about before on another Instagram Live, is that TCE is a word that I can never say, but the chemical TCE, which is present in dry cleaners, and most recently we heard about it on golf courses, which can be a real issue, is at least one of the factors or one of the causes of Parkinson's disease. You both dedicate a big chunk of the book to that. Tell me a little bit about the thinking of that. And one of the things that I read, and one of the things that I know from my own personal experience, is that I do not have the genetic markers. And I was shocked to read that the percentage of people who don't have it are somewhere around 85%, which is
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, depending on which series, 87% in another recent series through the Parkinson Foundation PD generation. So only 13 out of every 100, Allie, have one of the 7 most common genes associated with Parkinson. So there must be something else going on, right? And we all seem to be watching the cases grow, and everybody is pointing fingers at everybody for the past decade and a half. Or oh, there's Ray. There he is.
Yay! We did it!
Sorry,
I
you
hit
can
it.
tell who does social media and who doesn't. Sorry to interrupt, Michael. Sorry to be late, Allie.
No
You're,
worries.
you're good. We're glad you're here, Dr. Dorsey.
Yeah.
We were
Well,
just learning about your love of Love Island and The Bachelor. He said that you're really into The Bachelorette and all of the different series.
yeah. No longer watch NBA basketball. You only watch Love Island. That's what we've covered so far.
Thank you. I heard, I've been hearing. I've been waiting, but Michael's going to tell you more. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. We dove into the environmental toxin piece, which is, as I said, a big part of the beginning of the book. So we're tackling that before we jump into the other pieces.
So we were just sort of getting warmed up, Ray, and she threw a softball across the plate here since I'm a ball fan, and so when you have 13, only 13 out of every 100 in that PD generation study, and another study 15 out of every 100 having a genetic cause, then that's one of the reasons that we've become so interested in environmental causes of Parkinson disease. Also, from a primary prevention, aspect, why are these cases growing? And every time we try to talk about it, and Ray's actually been the one that has taken the most heat on this. People get sort of upset. Oh, there's no way it could be caused by these things, and we have an interview out in Katie Kirk Media that came out just today, talking about that history. And back in 2012 or so, in the prologue to one of the books was this idea of the Parkinson pandemic, and everybody got like crazy. They're like, oh, you're an alarmist and all of this stuff and everything. And maybe it was true at the time, but the cases were going up. And then Ray Dorsey came along. We wrote this book called Ending Parkinson's Disease with Bastian Bloom and Todd Shearer and the 4 of us. And that book said we were going to double our Parkinson cases by 2035 using the global burden of disease study data. And it turns out we're in 2025, 10 years ahead. Shocker for everybody listening, we're already at 11.8 million. So we've already made it to that 12 million marker, right? And so when we think about the growth of the disease, it's been explosive. If it's not driven primarily by genetics, then what is it? And so we have to start looking at environment. And when Ray and I both started our careers, he's my little brother, so he's younger than me. But when we both started our careers, if you said environment and Parkinson's disease, it was like a bad word, right? And no way. And then people would come in and they would say, hey, a whole bunch of people in my neighborhood, we all got Parkinson's disease together, and be like, well, that must have been quite a coincidence, right? And now, we approach it quite differently. We're like, tell us more. These clusters of cases are teaching us a lot. At the same time, we're seeing data come in from all over the world, that are pointing to increased associations with toxins and chemicals in our environment and Parkinson's disease. You see one study, maybe you believe it. You see two, you believe it more. If you see a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen across multiple continents, you start to believe that there's something there. And so in the book, we have the privilege of interviewing a whole bunch of people that have been exposed to these toxins and young people with Parkinson's. And we talk about this explosive growth. And I think it is really time to have the environmental discussion, as uncomfortable as it may be for people. But it also opens a great opportunity, a door to talk about primary prevention of this disease. So, Ray, tell what did I forget?
Well, one quick question for you, Dr. Dorsey, before you start. What do you equate then to the boom, if you will? So are these toxins, are these chemicals, if Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease, what accounts for the boom right now? Were these chemicals introduced 30 years ago and we're all just seeing the side effects of it now? Were they already around and we've just been more exposed to them? Is there some reason that it's growing so quickly now?
So first of all, thank you for having us. Second, you have to call me Ray.
No, I can't. We've already had this conversation.
So third, I'm going to ask you a question. So what
Yeah.
does Allie Signorelli, Brian Grant, Davis Finney, Michael J. Fox, Larry Gifford, Sonia Mather, and Tim Hague all have in common?
Other than Parkinson's?
Okay, so you all have Parkinson's.
Love
And
Island.
when did you guys
Love
get
Island. We all
Parkinson's?
love Love Island, clearly. Yeah.
And when did you guys all get Parkinson's?
7 years ago started.
No, but you were all young.
Yeah.
All,
Yeah. 40s.
all of you
40s.
are young, right? And I don't think any of you have a genetic cause or mutation for the disease.
Nope. Not
So
that
the
I know.
people who are going to change the course of the disease, right? The people who are going to change the course of the disease is Allie Signorelli, Michael J. Fox, Davis Finney, Brian Grant, Larry Gifford, Sonia Mather, and Tim Hague. All people with young onset Parkinson's. Not a single one, to my knowledge, carries a genetic cause for the disease. The most powerful voices, all are likely due to environmental exposures. Michael J. Fox says, I got exposure to some kind of chemical. Brian Grant was a 3-year-old boy at Camp Lejeune. Dr. Sonia Mather and others have their own stories for why they have it. So the seeds of Parkinson's disease are planted early.
Right.
The seeds of Parkinson's disease are planted early. Brian Grant was a 3-year-old boy when his father was a Marine at Camp Lejeune, contaminated with trichloroethylene, TCE, simple molecule, 2 carbons in black, 1 hydrogen in white, 3 chlorines in blue, trichloroethylene, and perchloroethylene still used in dry cleaners. So exposure to these things can happen young, can happen as a child, as a teenager. The Marines who served at Camp Lejeune on average were 20 years old, obviously healthy, and they were there for only 2 years, 25 months on average, yet 33 years later developed Parkinson's disease at 70% more greater risk of Parkinson's than Marines who served at Camp Pendleton in California, less contaminated. So what we are seeing today is a reflection of our environment in the past. Trichloroethylene use peaked in 1970, 2 pounds per American, 2 pounds per American. You're too young to remember typewriter correction fluid, but this was in typewriter correction fluid. It was in decaffeinated coffee. It was used as an anesthetic for pregnant women. 10 million Americans in 1970 estimated worked with this chemical. Printers, painters, textile manufacturers, embalmers, Silicon Valley workers, mechanics worked with it. So what we're seeing today is a reflection of what our environment is in our past. If we get rid of these chemicals, if we get rid of paraquat, if we get rid of chlorpyrifos, if we get rid of trichloroethylene and perchloroethylene, if we clean up our air, future generations are going to be spared this disease. Allie's children will not get Parkinson's disease. Michael's children will not get Parkinson's disease. David Spinney's children will not get Parkinson's disease. Brian Grant's lovely daughters will not get Parkinson's disease. Michael J. Fox's children will not get Parkinson's disease. This is all in our control. We can create a world largely free of Parkinson's disease. And Michael and I wrote this book, The Parkinson's Plan, and we outlined an actual plan, PLAN, to prevent and end this terrible disease.
And what do you say, Dr. Dorsey, to people who say, well, like I said to you when we first met, I have 3 siblings. None of them have Parkinson's. We all grew up in the same town. We all lived in the same places. What's your rebuttal to that?
So what percent of smokers get lung cancer? So it's 10%. 90% of smokers don't get lung cancer. And so what percent of cancer, but lung cancer, smoking causes lung cancer. 1962 Surgeon General, smoking caused lung cancer. Today, 80 to 90% of lung cancers are due to smoking. So our bodies are pretty good at getting rid of toxins. Not everyone exposed to asbestos gets mesothelioma. Even, we'll give you a genetic example. So for 10 years, I spent the first decade of my professional career working in Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease, a single gene, if you carry the genetic mutation, 100% likelihood you're going to develop disease. If you live long enough, if you don't have the genetic mutation, you will never get the disease. Identical twins will have different age of onset, will have different symptoms. Some will have the involuntary movements, some will have behavioral problems, will have entirely different courses, and that's with a purely genetic disease among identical twins. So in the book, we outline 3 determinants of why people might get it. Exposure. What was your dose? What was your duration? What was the route of exposure? I think inhalation is more. And when did the exposure happen? I think people exposed earlier, so you might have been exposed at a different age than your siblings, for example. That's one. Second is interactions. There are some genes that predispose. So for example, the most common genetic risk factor for Parkinson's disease are mutations in a gene called GBA. Work done by Dr. Carly Tanner and Ethan Brown at UCSF have recently showed that individuals with GBA mutations might have a heightened risk of Parkinson's disease if they're exposed to pesticides. So there are likely gene-environment interactions. Some people might metabolize these chemicals better than others. In addition, there are going to be environment-environment interactions. People who are exposed to pesticides and head trauma have a tripling of their risk of Parkinson's disease. And then there's chance. And then finally, there are modifiers: stress, diabetes, age, wide range of other things that I might explain.
So in the book, you recognize that I think I first of all, I marked about 50 different pages, but you recognize that Parkinson's disease may have multiple causes, right? We know that it sounds like environmental toxins are probably the leading cause in your mind, if not everyone's soon. But talk about why research then is so not focused on that aspect. Because if it were that simple, right, and all we had to do was get rid of the environmental toxins, why aren't we trying that, and why isn't it over? I mean, not taking into account trying to save those of us who already have it, but stopping it from happening.
And we can perhaps slow the progression of people like Allie and Michael J. Fox by reducing your ongoing exposure. So Michael, I think, alluded to the great study done by the Parkinson's Foundation, PD generation. Is it PD generation, Mike, or PD generation?
PD generation, yeah.
And it's looked at thousands of people with Parkinson's disease, and in a wonderfully generous study, they offered free genetic counseling and genetic testing to the individuals. And they analyzed the result from the first 8,000 participants in the study. And of that 8,000 people who signed up to participate in the study, only 12.5% carried a genetic cause or genetic risk factor. And as Michael said, the corollary is 87% of Americans with Parkinson's disease do not carry any known genetic cause or genetic risk factor. And if you do the math, that means 6 times as many people carry no genetic risk factor as do carry it. Yet there are 6 times as many publications on the genetics of Parkinson's disease than there are on the environment.
Right.
I
So
think
why are we stuck in that mode?
I think that's a
Why aren't we setting that aside and moving on to other things?
I think it's a failure of science. I think it's a failure of scientists, including Michael and me. And I think it's a failure of funders. I mean, Michael J. Fox doesn't carry a genetic form of Parkinson's disease. He says he got Parkinson's disease in an interview with Jane Pauley from exposure to some kind of chemical. Shouldn't we find out what chemical caused Michael J. Fox to get Parkinson's disease? And he was a cluster of individuals with Parkinson's disease. For the 100 people working on the TV show Leo and Me, this is public information, New York Times, developed Parkinson's disease all at a young age, not as young as Michael J. Fox did, but at a young age. We should find out what caused Michael J. Fox to get Parkinson's disease. We should find out what caused Davis Finney to get Parkinson's disease, what caused Larry Gifford, Sonia Mather, Tim Haig, and Allie Signorelli. If we find out what caused you guys to get Parkinson's disease, we can prevent it for millions of other Americans and billions of people around the world.
Let's do it. Okay, we could talk about that part of the book for
president of the United States on the next election. I'm thinking.
I'm in on that. So the book is 4 or 5 parts, 4 parts, I think. And the next part is the steps that you can do to either not get it at all or to slow progression in the form of a 25, Parkinson's 25. We don't have time to go through all 25 of them, but Dr. Okun, if you had to pick your top 4 or 5 of that 25, what would you say?
Yeah, what are my favorites? You know, what are
your favorites?
What do I tell people in the real world? Well, you know, one of the things that I tell folks is, first of all, sleep, sleep, sleep. I know it sounds, trite, but with Parkinson, sleeping is so important. And how do you know you sleep? And I love to ask people that question. I say, well, I sleep X. I'm like, how do you know? You actually measure it. And so, and it can get frustrating. Some people get frustrated with, watches and rings, and I got them all. I've tried them all. And we're really not actually looking for people to do crazy amounts of monitoring. We just want to, in general, are you getting to 6, 7, 8 hours a night of sleep? Because if you're not, you're going to have a terrible next day. Your Parkinson is not going to be as well controlled, no matter how good your medications are optimized. And you can do better, longer with your Parkinson. And so sleep, number one thing that I really focus on a lot. 2, if you don't have a water filter, you should be drinking filtered water, particularly if you have well water. Having a good water filter is one of the best protections that you can have against being exposed to pesticides and toxins. As much as I hate to say it, Ray Dorsey was right. We need to wash our fruit. There's only a 15-second rule by the USDA, and so we need to be doing much more. You can buy washes at Trader Joe's or wherever you're Publix and try to get the pesticides off of your fruit and off of your vegetables. Super important. Exercise is like a drug. Can't say it enough times. And it really, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You don't have to be doing, tremendous amounts of exercise, but you should be trying to get 7,500 steps or 7,500 step equivalents, whether you have Parkinson or not. And especially if you have Parkinson, there's a lot of good data, to suggest that those things are really important. And if you're focusing on those things, you're going to do well. And then the preventative thing I think that's really important is, gosh, why should we be sending our kids to be, playing on fields that have been sprayed with pesticides? And so we should be creating pesticide-free zones for our children and also for athletes. Those of you that love athletics and watching athletes on TV and things like that, we should be thinking a lot more about making things safer and reducing risk for people. So those are my 5 that I would choose.
Can I pick up on Michael's, the last one? So pesticides are widely sprayed on kids' schools and playgrounds. That needs to stop. Allie's kids, I don't want to speak for Allie's kids, but I'm sure they're fine if they play on a playground in a schoolyard that doesn't have pesticide. Second, we need to pay attention to sports fields. So yesterday, my son's a big sports fan, so we were watching Netflix, not Love Canal, but Or what do you call it? What's it called?
Love Island.
Oh, I
Love
don't
Island. Sorry.
Love Canal's a
I'm
different show
yeah,
entirely.
that's a
so
different.
I was watching SEC football, University of Florida Gators. Who's your head coach, Michael?
Billy Napier.
Billy Napier. So Billy Napier's father had ALS, and I know Allie cares about ALS, and we care about ALS. To me, there are too many athletes, too many coaches getting ALS in the sports industry. I worry a lot about pesticides that are sprayed on football fields, on golf courses, on baseball fields, and I worry a lot about head trauma and interaction. I think some of those pesticides are absorbed through people's skin. Some are fat soluble that they can go through the skin. They can get down to the muscle and nerve and perhaps kill the nerve, that the lower motor neuron, the nerve that goes from the spinal cord to the muscle, and contribute to ALS. And so I think some of them can be inhaled, contribute to Parkinson's disease and ALS. So these recommendations, while we put them a lot of focus on them for Parkinson's disease, we don't think it's just Parkinson's disease. We think these recommendations and these environmental chemicals are contributing to ALS. Certainly, pesticides are almost certainly doing so. Air pollution is contributing to Alzheimer's disease. Pesticides contribute to intellectual disabilities. TCE, trichloroethylene, causes cancer. Numerous reports of high rates of brain cancer and communities affected by TCE. So if we want to get brain diseases rid of them a lot of them, which are the leading source of disability in the world, we can do so by cleaning up our environment.
Gosh, you make it sound so easy. It's frustrating. Okay, so just want to make that happen. So another part of the book centers around stories and highlighting people who are living with it, reducing stigma, sharing stories. I really loved that part of the book. And tell us why you think the amplifying the voices piece of it is so important, either one of you or both.
Michael?
Yeah. So, it turns out that if you look at diseases like HIV and cancer, and you ask yourself, polio was the other one, and we looked at polio very carefully, both for this book, but also for the Ending Parkinson Disease book, and you ask yourself that fundamental question, Allie, what moves the needle? It turns out, and I know, like, we have almost 10,000 people signed up for the PD Avengers. I know you've got a huge following on Instagram. I know that, all the foundations, we're all trying to do everything we can to gather our support, but our voice hasn't been large enough to create that inflection point that we need to change a disease. The voice was bigger for HIV and more effective. When they put a condom over Holmes, Congressman Holmes's house, and said that Holmes is deadlier than the virus, and the HIV virus, it made change. When they peacefully went to the Washington Mall and had a peaceful sit-in at the FDA, it produced change. So we're going to need to amplify our more, and we're going to need to be more critical of ourselves on that avenue. We also need to rethink how we're doing it. And one of the quotes in the book that is entertaining is the quote about Han Solo and Chewbacca flying through the asteroid field in the Millennium Falcon, and the odds are 1 in a gazillion, right, that they're going to make it through this and survive. Those are the same odds for a Parkinson person making it through our healthcare system, and it gets harder and harder each year as the Parkinson progresses and changes. So we need to rethink how we do this. So we're rethinking from the patient is the sun, the person with the disease is the sun, and we should revolve around them. I'm kind of the broken record of that model. We've now expanded that to the Parkinson universe. So the patient, the person with disease, is the sun. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It gets hot being the caregiver, right? So that would be the caregiver. And then beyond Mercury, the other planets are all multidisciplinary team members. The almost planet, Pluto, is stigma. We shouldn't have stigma. We've written about that in bed with Ozzy Osbourne recently. Stigma should not exist in diseases like Parkinson, yet it's still there, like Pluto. It's still there, right in the orbit with everything else. And then we have satellites, which are like our wearables, and how we can track this disease better. We need navigators, mission control. So we need, like, cancer has mission control. They have care navigators. We don't have that in Parkinson. They're not funded. In HIV, we need a better system to help people to navigate. And then, of course, helping people to get through that asteroid field. I don't want to shock anybody here, at least anybody in American healthcare system. just a little bit broken, right? Really hard to get through, even get a single appointment, much less get your parking, and be able to see a specialist, much less the multiple people that need to be in your orbit for you to be successful with Parkinson. And so we talk a lot about what we need to do, what the plan needs to be. And remember, the P for plan is prevent. The L is learn why. Why does it start? Why does it progress? And instead of looking at the very end consequences of all these proteins stuck on the brain, we need to figure out what's going on at the very beginning. The A is the amplification of voices and thinking through a larger Parkinson universe. We need to do this better. And the N is how we're going to navigate through the different therapies. But there are 12 million people now in 2025, 11.8 to be exact. Should have been 12 million by 2035, but we're 10 years ahead of ourselves, and we don't want to be winning that battle. We don't want to be number one for that. We got to take care of those people now.
I often say that Parkinson's has a PR problem, and I think of I was doing a little research the other day, and this statistic came across my screen that women after, I might be getting this wrong, but after 45, women have a chance of developing a neurodegenerative disease of about 30%. Might have that not completely right. And yet our chances of getting breast cancer after 45 are around 12%, 12.5%. So it is double the chances of a 45 and older woman to getting a neurodegenerative disease than it is to getting breast cancer. And yet I get my mammogram every single year. Everyone I know does. If you miss it, people come down on you. There's pink ribbons everywhere. And breast cancer is serious and awful, and I've lost friends to it. So this isn't to minimize that, but there is no PR machine around neurodegenerative diseases. There is no singular month dedicated to Parkinson's. There's not even one color dedicated to these diseases. I think we have a major PR problem. And I think what happens because of that is that people assume it can't happen to them. It can't happen to me because I've never even heard about it. And I was a brain health fundraiser. I was an Alzheimer's fundraiser, and I still didn't think I was going to get my own neurodegenerative disease. So that's how disconnected the world is from thinking that it will happen to you.
So let's stand up to brain diseases. Let's stand up to brain diseases. I'm in New York City, so ACT UP formed here in 1987, and they, among for HIV, and they adopted a motto of silence equals death. Because for early people affected with HIV, silence equals death. And let's give a shout out to the late Larry Kramer, to Peter Staley. David France wrote a great book, How to Survive a Plague. For Parkinson's disease, silence is equal to suffering. It's equal to needless and preventable and unnecessary suffering. And the silence around Parkinson's disease needs to end. So if you're listening, join the PD Avengers. Allie, Michael, and I have all joined it. It's pdavengers.com. It takes 30 seconds to join. It's free to join. I think it's a crime that there's only 8,000 PD Avengers. There should be 80,000. There should be 100,000 PD Avengers. If you have Parkinson's disease and you don't want to avenge Parkinson's disease,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
Sandra.
sweating. Michael and I are working hard. We're going around the entire country.
You're
You can
working
spend
hard.
30 seconds and join the PD Avengers. And then Allie's going to be the PR person. And she's going to make the
Listen,
voices heard. And we're going to stand up to brain diseases, not just for us, but for all generations. Allie is going to be part of the last generation to get Parkinson's disease.
Not just for Parkinson's, because as I've learned of late, since I was diagnosed and some of the close friends that I've made, and I said this last night, these diseases don't discriminate. I mean, they do discriminate economically and in other ways, but they don't discriminate if you're a global superstar like Bruce Willis or a White House lawyer like Brian Wallach. It doesn't matter what background you have, how smart you are, how successful you are still not immune to these diseases. And so, yes, we have a plan. We already pitched it to Katie Couric. We're working on it, but there needs to be a warning bell rung that has not yet been rung. And that's why, in part, I was so glad that the national plan passed. I was very hopeful that it would move faster than it is, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that it's still moving forward. The last part of your book, and I only have you for a few more minutes because you're both ridiculously busy and smart doctors, but the last part of your book is the plan, which you guys just talked about a little bit. Tell everybody what they should be. I mean, there's so many different options in here on how to Enjoy wine without pesticides, which was my favorite little. First of all, the fact that wine that was it Chateauneuf du Pape had this chemical in it made me very, very sad. Not that I drink that, but
Like go
just the
Italian
idea.
wine. Got to go Italian with your wines. It's pesticide.
Oh, really? Italians don't use the
They do
chemical?
use pesticides in your wines in Italy, and you see a little. This is the tip everybody's been waiting for. Goes to the top of the bottle, and they're legal in Italy.
So when you're watching Love Canal, make sure you drink Italian wine. That's what I
Love,
learned today.
love.
What else? What are the other takeaways that you want people to know besides that they should buy your book?
Well, the book, all the proceeds go to. So first of all, we definitely need to get the. Second is we need to amplify our voices. That's what the A is, the amplification. If we don't amplify our voices, we're not going to get there. Okay. Third, we only spend 2 or 3 cents out of every dollar on prevention. That is ridiculous. Okay. So we need to have a proportional amount spent on each of the 4 pillars: preventing, learning why it starts, where it starts, how it starts, and beginning to direct therapies upstream, taking care of the 12 million people with the care by amplifying care, and then also creating the navigation for the people that have Parkinson now in the short, medium, and long term, so we can actually, hand, as Ray Dorsey likes to say, hand the next generation the greatest gift, no Parkinson's disease in our children, right? And help the people who have Parkinson now. We also call for levodopa for all. You'll read the book and you'll be shocked, as I was, as we did the research on this, how many countries don't have access to a pill that has still the best treatment for Parkinson, been around over 50 years, which is still pathetic. We need better treatments, right? But this is still the singular best treatment. We can get HIV pills to everyone. Why can't we get, dopamine to everyone? So we call for dopamine for all as part of the plan, and I think that's super, super important. We need to make sure. And Ray, you want to talk about sort of the 3 tiers, the 0, 10, 100?
Yes. So first of all, we got to address this PR problem. So if you buy the book, you get more media attention. Allie will tell you the more books are sold, the more media will cover it. It's a great way to make your voices heard. Michael and I are donating all of our proceeds, future proceeds, to efforts to prevent and treat the disease. So you can buy the book and increase awareness and increase efforts to prevent and treat. And Michael and I are working with generous donors so that ideally, if you can't afford a copy of the book, just like we did for Ending Parkinson's Disease, we're working it so that we can provide free copies of the Parkinson's plan to those who can't afford it. We're working on that, Michael and I. So there are 3 goals for 2035. So in 2013, UNAIDS outlined 3 goals for the HIV community: 90, 90, 90. That by 2020, 90% of people with HIV will be diagnosed with the disease, 90% of those will be treated, and 90% of those will have no virus in their blood. Michael and I say by 2035, we have 3 goals: 0, 10, 100. By 2035, the rise in the incidence of Parkinson's disease for the US and the world will be 0%. A 0% rise in Parkinson's disease adjusted for age, so that Parkinson's disease is no longer the fastest growing, and that by 2035, we start talking about the fall of Parkinson's disease. And we outline a detailed plan for what you can do as individuals, the Parkinson 25, what you can do in your communities, tell the golf courses to stop using toxic pesticides, get rid of pesticides in your kids' schools, and what we can do as a society: measure the incidence of Parkinson's disease, ban paraquat. We outline, so that's the first goal. The second goal, as Michael alluded to, is 10. Increase research funding 10 times as much from NIH as it is currently. Last year, NIH spent $3 billion on HIV research with great results. HIV, the incidence of HIV is at its lowest level since 1990. HIV affects 1.2 million Americans. Parkinson's affects 1.2 million Americans. NIH spending last year was $250 million, less than 1/10 of it. And increased, instead of having 2 pennies of every dollar, as Allie was saying, focus on preventing Parkinson's, let's make it 2 dimes. And then Michael's favorite is that by 2035, we have 100% access to levodopa. If 90% of people with HIV can have access to expensive, complex medications, 100% of people should have access to a safe, inexpensive highly effective pill for Parkinson's.
I want to add a couple things to that. One is if you're on here and you follow me when you have Parkinson's or you have a loved one with Parkinson's, then you can tell your story too. It doesn't have to just be me. It doesn't have to just be those other names that the doctors have all thrown around today. Everyone that tells their story about this disease, either as a care partner or as a patient, makes an impact. That is advocacy. That is all advocacy is. It is sharing your story to make change. So tell your story, tell it locally, tell it nationally, tell your lawmakers, come to policy forums, show up, sign up, speak out. It matters. It absolutely matters. The second thing is that stigma is a real thing. It's real for me. Even as vocal as I am about my journey with this disease, I have been at the expense of stigma professionally and personally. So I get it. It's not always easy to do exactly what I just asked you to do, but the more we all talk about it, the more people see we are fully functioning, wonderful human beings despite Parkinson's. It's really important. And the last thing is prevention does not eliminate progression stopping. That's not the right wording, but I was a big proponent of brain health prevention, and I'm now being on the other side. It sometimes feels like when people talk about prevention, it's almost as if we've been thrown out with the trash. You already have it. We're not worried about you. But the truth is that if we can discover what prevents Parkinson's, we can cure those of us who have Parkinson's. So prevention is not a bad word. Don't be afraid of it if you're already living with this disease. Invest in prevention for your kids, for your family, for your friends. Hopefully it will uncover answers. So
Can I hammer on that prevention thing? So I'm going to read you the first part. The Parkinson's 25. So here are 25 actions to lower your risk of Parkinson's. For those with the disease, for the 1.2 million Americans with the disease, some may even slow progression. So we know that some people with Parkinson's have a slow rate of progression and some have a fast rate of progression. I think one of the reasons why is some people have ongoing exposure to these toxicants and some no longer have that exposure. If you are a smoker and you get diagnosed with lung cancer, what's the first thing the doctor's going to tell you to do?
give it up.
If you're a farmer and you get diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, what should the neurologist be telling you to do?
Yep.
If you're drinking well water and you have Parkinson's disease, what should the doctor be telling you to do? If you're still getting your clothes dry clean, if you're spraying pesticides in your home, if you're doing a lot of gardening with pesticides, if you're drinking wine with pesticides, if you're eating conventional food and not washing it, what are you doing? We give you 25 recommendations to slow the rate of progression of the disease. Look at Davis Finney. I was just at the Davis Finney Foundation. That man is ripped. And when I went biking with Davis Finney and Connie Carpenter Finney, two Olympian medalists, went biking with Ray Dorsey, who showed up in his basketball shorts and shoes, and went biking. They kicked my behind. Davis Finney, 10 years older than me, with 25 years of Parkinson's disease. The highlight of the thing is we're coming back. He passes me on a downhill, and he pats me on the back going down. I mean, look at what Davis Finney is doing. Look, Michael J. Fox has written 3 books, starred in 2 sitcoms, won numerous awards, and has started the most impactful foundation ever. People can live long, productive lives. We just need to give them the tools to slow and control the rate of progression of the disease so that they can live long, healthy, productive lives despite having this, and so that they can guarantee that their children no longer get this disease is not passed on to their children.
Bravo. Thank you both. You are both amazing. I'm proud to call you now friends. I will never call you by your first names, but that's okay. This is the book. Everybody go get it. It's available on Tuesday. If you can't afford it, DM me, DM one of the doctors. We'll figure out how to get you a copy. But it's a lifeline of information. And if you haven't signed up for PD Avengers or in some other way, sign up with the Michael J. Fox Foundation or the PD Foundation. Sign up, get involved. We can't end this without you. So thank you both. Good luck on your book tour. You've
Thank
got
you.
many, many stops. I wish you
Thank you.
well.
We'll see you in DC.
We'll see
All
you
right.
guys soon. Bye.
See you in a couple weeks.